I don't think we'll finish the Sikha now, but let's read. The issue that the Rebbe is talking about, it's a logic issue, it's a common sense issue, is when a person does something, and this is Hebrew, I don't know English grammar, but in Hebrew grammar, a person does something as an individual, it's described as the actions of one. If many people do something as a group, it's described as the actions of many. That makes sense, right? In the Chumash, it says, Vayachanu, and they rested, that's the actions of many. Vayichan Sham, and he rested, is the actions of one. And our Sikha is wondering why in Chumash, when many people do an actions, there are occasions where they're described as if the many were one. And there's, of course, many answers to this question. It's a ganze Geschichte. But that's the question on the table. If an action is being done by many people, why is it being described by being done by one person? So the Rebbe sets up a paradigm, a klal, a rule about how this works. Let's read it inside. When you're talking about many people, you see where I'm reading? I'm assuming that that's a yes. Oder a ganze Volk, or an entire nation. Occasionally, when many people are doing one thing, you'll describe it as the actions of many. And occasionally you'll be describing it as if one person is doing it. So the Rebbe says, I'm going to give you a common sense reason when you would describe many people doing an action as one, that you would describe it as an action done by many, and on other occasions you would describe it as an action done by one. The answer would be this. The simple reason to separate the two would be this. The idea that many people can be doing an action, and you'll describe it as if one person is doing it, we're talking about an action. Okay? Like to travel. Many people travel, you could describe it as one person traveling. Okay, so the Rebbe continues, right? If many people are doing one action, and they're doing it in an equal way and in a unified way, it makes sense to describe the group as an individual, because they're doing only one action. So when many people involve themselves in doing one thing together, collaboratively, right? We went, the whole school went to the park and they played ball, right? So you could say the whole school went to the park and he played ball, because playing ball is not particularly profound and deep. And they all played ball together on the same level. Bottom of page 102. But when you're talking about emotions, right? They went to the park and they played ball, and one group was very happy and the other group was very sad. An attitude that comes from the mind, and the like, from a rabbim of a group. Was in them is doch. And of course, many people can do the same action and they can do it as one. But when it comes to emotions, the fact is doch. What is the English translation of the word doch? Es is doch al tel avolim, right? What's doch? Anybody? Doch means emphasis. It's an extra word. It's a redundancy, right? Then was in them is doch. That when it comes to attitudes, feelings, the truth is doch, emphasis. When it comes to people's minds and hearts, we're all different. Is das allemal in oifel rabbim? If I'm rabbim, when you're describing an activity that people are doing as a group, you can either describe them being a collective of many people, you can describe them being one. But when you're describing a group of people sharing a feeling, you would never say that they're one. Because on the emotional level, it's too subtle, it's too sensitive, it's too ephemeral to describe them as one. Each one feels differently. Now, here is a question. Page 103, second column. You with me? You see how quickly we get through a Sikha, yeah? Al derech zeh is moving Mapasha Sen, which was in our case. In the Pirush HaPosuk, when it says at the second half of the second Posuk that I read with you, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Megadar, Israel rested there adjacent to the mountain, and the Vayichan is Lashon Yochid. But negay to Etzem Chaniyah, the Jewish people were not just resting. for the Yidden in Yenemot, of the Jewish people in that place, says the Rebbe in their Pasuk, Meidia Friya, the words immediately before this already said, Vayachanu b'midbar. They collectively rested in the Midbar. So if the words before say Vayachanu, they collectively rested in the Midbar, that means the Jews are being viewed as a plurality. But in the next words it says Vayichan, it becomes a question. If we're describing what the Jewish people is doing, as Lashon Rabim, a whole bunch of people move together, why do you follow it up immediately by saying Vayichan Lashon Yachid? Muzman Zagim, we therefore have no choice but to say, as das was their pasuk is Meisa Vayichan. When the pasuk then follows that up and says, and he rested there, Israel rested there, says the Rebbe kum zu mevayer zayin. The pasuk is coming to explain then Vayachanu, the way they rested. In other words, they're oifanachania, the way they rested, unachonan, being prepared to kabbalah satera, to receiving the Torah, was them darken gedaf makabel zayin, that they needed to receive there. So if you look at the pasuk, right, if you go back to page 1, it says, Vayis'u made to feed them, they travel to feed them. Vayavoyu made to they came, Vayachan, they rested, Vayichan, and he rested. So it says the Vayichan is redundant. Literally the words before said Vayachanu. It's the same pasuk. And Vayachanu means they rested. How would you qualify they rested by saying he rested? Says the Rebbe, because the he rested is explaining how they rested. That even though there's so many people, and they traveled as a plurality, and they agreed on what they needed to do, and the pasuk says Vayachanu b'midbar, they rested, you should know in this case, this collective rested as if they were one person. Okay? So Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Vayachanu b'midbar describes what they did, Vayichan Sham Yisrael describes their unity, their achdus. What's the problem? What's the problem? Look at the next paragraph. The achana nafshis und der Rotzen und achana zu Matan Torah. The spiritual preparation and the will and preparation to the giving and the getting of the Torah is doch. Anybody doch? Emphasis, very good. By Yidden given, every single Jew experienced it, Lefi Madragasa, according to his step, umatzav, in his condition, haruchni, which is spiritual. We're not in the same way. If they're doing an action, they can do it together. But if they're doing something meaningful and spiritual and emotional, everybody's different. So since what they're doing is getting ready to receive the Torah, and receiving the Torah is a very spiritual and emotional thing, shouldn't it say Vayachanu? Page 104, turn the page. Lefi da hadoch. Accordingly, it should have been doch, emphasis. Oich da, in this case as well, gedav stein Vayachanu sham Yisrael b'loshen rabim, the Jewish people rested collectively. Why? Because the Rebbe said, I'm going to give you common sense, right? Who wrote the book Common Sense? Anybody know the book Common Sense? Huh? Thomas Paine. But they have to write, every week there's been a new version of Common Sense, which makes the old Common Sense look not commonsensical. But okay, that's another story. I'll give you a common sense. When you're talking about a group of people and you want to describe them as one, you'll use that form when they're doing an action. You're not going to use that form when they're experiencing motivation. Because when they're doing something spiritual and meaningful, they're a group. Here we have a problem. The Jewish people are getting ready to receive the Torah. They traveled from Rephidim, they came to Har Sinai, and the Torah is describing how they came, meaning the Torah is describing the kavanah, the spirit behind this journey, and it says Lashon Yachid. It says, Rebbe, wait a minute, you could use a singular form to describe the actions of many if it's an action. But they aren't doing an action. They're doing something deeply spiritual and deeply, I'll use a very, very favorite American term, deeply personal. So why is this described as a singularity? So what's Rashi's answer? Ki'ish echad, what she said. Ki'ish echad, that the unity doesn't begin with what they're doing. It begins with who they are. It doesn't begin b'leiv echad, ki'ish echad. It begins ki'ish echad. Look at the next paragraph. Bavorant Rashi. So Rashi answers this question. If the Jewish people are collectively doing something that involves a mental and spiritual and emotional preparedness, how could you describe that collective as doing it as one anything you do spiritually and emotionally is very personal, it's very individual, it's very diverse. Why is it Lashon Yachid? So Rashi answers, und is meitig von dem Werte, dem Pasuk, he quotes the Pasuk Vayichan Sham Yisrael, Israel rested there. Says Rebbe, which of these three words is most important? The word Yisrael. Look. And I circled it. If you have your text, if you actually follow me, I circled it. Alas Yisrael. As Jews, seinen alle Yidden gewähnt ish echad. They were one. Mit ein Ichud von einem mit dem zweiten, a unity between one and another. So this is unbelievable. It's amazing to me how you got that. That it says ish echad first to answer a question. How could a group of people be unified when they're sharing something which is so deep and emotional? And the answer is because they share something as a people. Ki ish echad. We're Jews. That's what they have in common. That commonality makes them one, and it is spiritual, and it sets up the B'lei V'echad. Let's continue. Und die Achtos, and because the event of that day begins with the unity of the Jewish people as a people, this unity then spills over to a unity of purpose. Hot Bazeya Roiskirufen, as a subsequent consequence of that, Azei Zolin Zayin Belev Echad, they should have also one heart, alle mit ein und demselben Ratzon, all with one and the same will, believe in their heart. To makabel zayin the Torah, to receive the Torah. This is unreal. It's an analysis of a few words, and of course it's based on the Mechilta, but it's just so beautiful, right? It's so beautiful. The Jewish people were first unified because they're Jews, and then they were unified because they're getting the Torah. Why? Because in getting the Torah they wouldn't be unified. In getting the Torah they were very individual. But if their journey, this particular journey, begins not by them preparing to receive the Torah, but by them joining with fellow Jews, that could be Ki'ish Echad, as one person. And once they find a way of being as one person, it becomes much easier than being with one heart. And I go back to what I told you before, right? The Pasuk in Parashat Peshalach last week describes the Egyptians chasing the Jews. They were a large group of people, and it says also singular. V'hinei Mitzrayim, they say Achareim, says Rashi, B'lei Echad Ki'ish Echad, one heart with one person. So the Rebbe is going to say in the Sikha, because Egyptian unity began with unity of purpose, unity of what they were doing, and it spilled over into unity of person. In our Pasha, the Jewish people can't achieve this unity. Why not? If you're going to develop a relationship with Hashem, if you're going to get the Torah from Hashem, if you're going to have an emotional and spiritual and intellectual involvement with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the person sitting next to you is going to do it different. He's a separate person. We're all diverse. We're all distinctive. So it says, Ki'ish Echad. What brought the Jewish people together is that they're Yisrael. V'yichin Sham Yisrael meged ahar. Israel rested there. It began with the fact that we're a common nation. We're one nation. That unity, as you correctly said, is a fait accompli. It's a fact of life. It's who they are. It's in their genes. But on that particular occasion, they chose to turn it on, right? The travel before, the travel after. They forgot that they're one nation, and they complained and they argued. Complained to God, why are you moving so fast? They argued with one another what the motion means. But on this one occasion, we don't know why. The first thing Jewish people did was, what are the Three Musketeers, right? One for all and all for one, right? Isn't that the slogan? Am I right or wrong? Which one comes first? One for all for one, or all for one and one for all? All for one and one for all. That's so easy to say, man. That is, or woman. But you know how difficult it is to do? You know how hard, you know what loyalty means? One for all and all for one means that if one of us die, all of us die. If one of us needs to be saved, we're all going to be saved. It's very powerful. It's a great slogan. It's good in a movie. But in the reality of life, it's each his own, each to his own. And I don't mean this in a selfish way. It's the way people are. For human beings to achieve a unity, right? So here's I'll go back to what I said to you before. Which unity is easy to achieve? A unity of purpose or a unity of person? A unity of purpose means we're doing the same thing. A unity of person means we're all one person. That's the difference between Ki'ish Echad and B'leiv Echad. B'leiv Echad means we're doing the same thing, emotionally. Ki'ish Echad means we're one person. The Rebbe says when the Yidden came to Har Sinai, the unity began not with getting the Torah, but with the fact that they were Jews. Yisrael. And the unity as Jews brought them to the Leiv Echad, that when they emotionally invested in getting the Torah from the Eibishter, they felt the same way. But again, with the Ki'ish Echad, it's wonderful. It's incredibly sweet.
And we see that even now. Like a lot of Jews, like I have relatives who they'll say, "Oh, I'm Jewish," but they might not. They're like, "Oh, but I'm atheist." But they're such proud Jews. They see the Jewish nation as a whole, and that's like something that.
Unfortunately, there are some Jews who don't feel that strongly. I just want you to know, one of my favorite little anecdotes is, I teach in Besrivka. This goes back 2 or 3 years ago. Chanukah time, a girl came into school and she sent it on her phone. On Facebook, you can make your own posters, it's nothing. You take a piece of paper and you choose what color and what design, and then you read whatever. So a person wrote, "I love the Jewish religion. It's the only religion where you can be an atheist and you're still a Jew." So some guy put it up, and the girls brought it into school and they showed it to me. So I made a whole class out of it. Right? If a person is an atheist, why do they care that they're Jewish? Because they're not an atheist. That's why. If I truly don't believe in anything, so what does it mean to be a Jew? The answer to the question is, please don't ask me because you're going to make me uncomfortable. That's the answer. Please don't ask me if you're comfortable because I know it means something, but I don't want to admit that it means anything. But your point is well taken. You could argue that the beginning of our religious identity is our human identity as Jews. It's a great question. Which comes first, the Jewish people, the Jewish religion? It's a great question. And in the form of this discussion, the Jewish people is Ish Echad, the Jewish religion is Leiv Echad. Okay, let's read one more paragraph.
People came first before the Jewish religion.
Yeah, but it's a very, very deep thing. To identify with other human beings. You have a hard enough time identifying with your brothers and sisters. Your cousins. 15 million people scattered all over the world who disagree with you on almost everything. The idea that Jews are a nation is a profound thing. It's not simple. Let's just read one more paragraph, okay? Page 104, second column. By Yidden, the Achtos Ki'ish Echad is given mitzadem gufa v'zei zayin Yidden. In this story, the unity between one Jew and the next begins with the fact that they're Jewish. Ki'ish Echad, as one person. Und die Achtos, and this unity, top of page 105 now, hat bei zeh hareis gruf dem Melecha, that brings the one heart to Kabbalah to receiving the Torah. Okay, we'll continue this next week in Mitzvah Hashem, and I'm going to review. I'm going to bring you up to speed. Okay, let's go.